What a fight that was. Tai Tuivasa comes out there and starts putting damage on Marcin Tybura in the striking, but then once it hits the ground, Tuivasa looked like he's never grappled before. Had no idea what to do when he was on his back and when he had his back taken. This is now Tuivasa's 4th loss in a row. 2 years ago, Tai Tuivasa was in the top 5 of the heavyweight division. Now he's on a 4-loss streak, losing to the number 10 ranked fighter. But let's be honest, the only reason why he got into the top 5 was because he beat Derek Lewis. And Derek Lewis, even though he's a big puncher, not technical enough to keep himself at the top of the rankings. Same thing with Tai Tuivasa. They're always like 1 or 2 punches away from entering the top 5. But when their grappling skills are so abysmal compared to what already the standard is in the heavyweight division, even Marcin Tybura made easy work out of this double leg, held the half guard, Tuivasa gave up his back, Tybura got his back, hammered away into a rear naked choke. Like, there was nothing groundbreaking here whatsoever. It was all very, very basic from Marcin Tybura, and Tai Tuivasa looked like a fish out of water. I mean, he tried to explode and just stand up while he was in half guard, which is very difficult to do because that one leg that the opponent is on top of is acted like an anchor. You can't just explode out of half guard. You could do it out of full mount or full guard. Not half guard though. It's very difficult to do it in that position. And he most likely thought of Derek Lewis, I'm just going to explode out of here instead of using actual technique. I'm not going to try to transition into the full guard and kick him away or something like that. Nah, I'm just going to stand up from here. He tried to scoop back and walk up the cage, but there's always going to be a risk of the opponent trying to get your back, which Tybura was attempting to do. But something that the Aussies and Kiwis are really good at in this game is cage walking while hand fighting the opponent from establishing a grip. This is something you see from Alexander Volkanovski, even Israel Adesanya. Look how Tuivasa, with his own left hand, he tries to grab Tybura's right wrist and to stand up from there. But Tybura moved his hand out of the way and wrapped around with a Dagestani handcuff. You can see with his left hand, he reaches around Tuivasa's back, grabs onto the wrist, and he's keeping himself in the half guard position, anchoring down Tuivasa's right leg. Grips that arm with 2 now. He has 2 hands onto one of Tuivasa's. Once this move got locked onto Tuivasa, he had no idea what to do. Might as well just stand up now, right? Just keep going. When he turns over and frees that right shoulder, that's where he gives his back up, and Tybura instantly recognizes it, goes in for the hooks. No figure 4, just has the hooks in and starts hammering away at Tuivasa, who was literally just sitting there eating shots. You can even see Tuivasa posture up, and he just sits there. He doesn't even move anywhere. He doesn't try to squirm around, at least trying to be a little bit evasive. He's eating shots. At the very least, he could try to reach under and pry off a hook if he's gonna take shots like this. He's literally in his base, just taking punches from another heavyweight. He's gifted with a really good chin, so he was able to keep himself in there for such a long time, but I was starting to worry for him, man. I was starting to worry that the ref was going to call off the fight right from there. There were dozens of unanswered shots landed on Tuivasa's head, and the only effort he had was trying to stand up again with a 247-pounder on his back. Look how he gets on one foot. He's trying to stand up in this position, but there was way too much weight now moved onto the left side, and it makes him tumble over. Tuivasa did have a moment where he looked like he wanted to grab one of the legs and try to pry that open, but in this position, it's much more difficult to do because he's leaning on his left side, right? And Tybura is leaning his back on the fence, balancing on his right foot and his left knee. It's going to be much more difficult now to pry open that right leg of Tybura, where that is now his balancing and supporting leg. He has a lot more strength and weight on that leg now, whereas before where he was balancing on Tuivasa's back, it was going to be a bit easier for him to maneuver that leg if he was going to attempt it at all. But there was definitely way more things he could have done to get out of that position than try to pry open the leg. But he did try to posture up again. He moved to his right side and just exposed his neck completely. This is another phase of Tai Tuivasa where he didn't have the correct defense on how to get out of this rear naked choke. Now, he did stay in there for a very long time, which is credit to his toughness, his willingness to just keep himself in the fight. The guy has so much heart, but the technique on the ground just didn't match it at all. He sat in the rear naked choke for a very long time without any defense, and then at moments, he would try to grab onto the elbow that's under his neck, and then he just lets go of that. But he would let go of any kind of resistance, and he's actually twisting his body, trying to turn under Tybura's rear naked choke and face him, which he can't really do. He's completely locked down into this position. The hand that he would want to target is the top hand. If he can grab onto the top hand and yank that one off, then the choke is going to be much weaker. But grabbing onto the hand is going to be quite difficult in this position, given how hidden it is. But there needs to be some kind of defense, some kind of resistance here from Tuivasa to at least attempt it, right? The fact that he didn't even attempt to grab that top hand right there showed that he just didn't understand the technique in order to get out of a rear naked choke. But the reason as to why it would be difficult even if he tried was because, number one, the hand and arm specifically are very hidden, right? They're under both of their heads, and Tybura is leaning on top of it. His body weight is on top of his own arm. Even if Tuivasa grabbed onto it and yanked it forward to straighten the arm, the fence will be blocking it from doing so. So even if Tuivasa grabbed the hand, it'd be very hard for him to even maneuver it. Tuivasa eventually passed out for a moment. He was in that rear naked choke for about 40 seconds. A 40-second rear naked choke is crazy. A reason for that is Tybura didn't have the necessary position to apply as much squeeze, right? He didn't have as much strength or leverage in that position in order to have a fully locked in rear naked choke. His body was also at somewhat of an angle on top of Tuivasa as well. So great finish by Marcin Tybura. A tough, gritty effort from Tai Tuivasa. He did have a lot of success on the stand-up. And I also have to say, good refereeing from Herb Dean. Herb Dean did a really good job here, man. He stopped the fight at the perfect moment that it should have been stopped while the rear naked choke was in. I wonder what people would say about the ground and pound, though. I didn't see any opinions on that. I think Herb Dean did a good job, though, with not stopping it, because even though Tybura was landing a lot of shots, Tuivasa wasn't looking like he was getting rocked like that, you know? So I think good refereeing from Herb Dean overall. In the beginning, Tai was landing some really good elbows and hooks, especially intercepting that wonky dipping head movement from Marcin Tybura. He even cut him open with a really good shot too, but didn't deal well with the jab or the right straight from Tybura, who was able to back him up to the fence by doing so. The footwork wasn't really there, and the cage awareness of how far he was from the fence wasn't too great from Tuivasa. Got pushed up against it a little too easily, and immediately went under for a takedown as Tuivasa tried to intercept him with a left straight. Probably thinking that for some reason Tybura was trade punches with him. And this is something I mentioned in my last podcast episode. There seems to be like this trend with fighters that they'll straight punches or overhands when they know they're going up against someone who wants to take them to the ground. And that will be a lot more present when they're backed up to the fence. So when they know, okay, my back's up against the fence, you don't see a lot of them throwing uppercuts or knees and stuff like that when they're in a position for takedowns to get shot on them. And this is another example of that. And not only was the takedown coming this way, even Tybura's striking defense was with a lot of these lower motions, right? Lowering his levels. And earlier on, Tuivasa was catching him for doing that. But as soon as he got backed up to the fence, he didn't throw the same kind of shot. He didn't throw the uppercuts or the shovel hooks or the elbows. And it could explain a little bit of a panicking situation for Tuivasa, because you know what comes after this. When he did get taken to the ground, he didn't know at all of what to do against Tybura. Like, it was a complete mismatch. But the takedown itself was kind of hard for Tuivasa to defend against, considering that Tybura did lock his hands under his hips. And he put a lot of pressure with his head and his shoulder into Tuivasa's chest, taking him down from there. And Tuivasa's a strong guy. He had that left underhook, and he did try to force Tybura off of him, but he was barely able to budge him. It was a hard takedown, and Tybura landed into the half guard position, which is a very important position for him to lock down Tuivasa on the mat. And again, good comeback win for Marcin Tybura. But what do you do with these two fighters now? So Marcin Tybura was number 10. He beat the number 9 Tai Tuivasa. Tybura is 8-2 in his last 10 fights, and each of those losses are against Tom Aspinall and Alexander Volkov, some of the better guys at the heavyweight division. So his record's actually pretty decent. He hasn't beaten like the best guys or anything like that, but Tybura is doing better now than he's ever done in his entire career. And losing to guys like Tom Aspinall and Volkov are not too bad considering where he's ranked right now. I would say a fight between Marcin Tybura and Jailton Almeida makes sense, because number 6 is Volkov. He already lost to him. Curtis Blades, I think, should be fighting Tom Aspinall if John Jones isn't going to. Stipe's fighting Jones. You could do Pavlovich. Pavlovich versus Tybura is not bad, but I think Pavlovich versus Gane makes more sense. So I would say give Marcin Tybura Jailton Almeida. And as for Tai Tuivasa, I don't think they're going to cut him because he still is a fan favorite. If he loses again, that's probably wraps for him. And as for Tai Tuivasa, let's give him Chris Barnett. The reason why I say Chris Barnett is it's a guy that will stand up with him. And the other reason is everybody from number 11 to number 15, besides Derek Lewis, can take him to the ground and submit him. Let's give him a favorable style to go up against and see how he performs there, because he cannot handle the grapplers. He just can't. And I know an argument could be, if he can't handle the grapplers, then what is he doing in the UFC? That is a very reasonable take, but I just want to see him fight Chris Barnett or something. If you lose to Chris Barnett, that's it for him. So I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown, and if you did, make sure to give this a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.